Daren, just if you will, please start off by telling me, why did the Cardinals start the game with their fourth-string quarterback last night, Phillip Sims?
Well, because at that point, and as far as we know at this point, he was in a battle with Logan Thomas on who was going to be the third quarterback on this team. And in fact, Phillip Sims had probably had a better training camp / preseason going into last night's game, and they wanted to see what he would look like as a starter.
Daren, this is Woody. Thanks for joining us. Why don't people go ahead and call him Phil Sims? And maybe some people will be mistaken and go, Phil Sims, what a great comeback story.
It's it was funny when he first got here, and the Sims timeline is crazy. I mean, the only reason he was on this team, they brought him in as a camp arm for rookie minicamp. I mean, he came in on a tryout basis for rookie minicamp. I mean, he wasn't on the roster, and they just needed bodies to throw to their undrafted rookies, and they saw enough of them there that he got signed and then went on to have a pretty solid preseason.
It would be nice after all the quarterbacks, and we know Carson Palmer's going to be the guy, but it'd be nice if Arizona, they've gone through 14 quarterbacks since Kurt Warner retired, to find some young guy that actually you could develop into something. Yeah,
that actually can play.
Well, I say that
clearly, and that's been it's been a grind for them. I mean, that was what Logan Thomas was supposed to be, and there may still be some hope there, but it's one of the problems, and you guys see it in Denver. I mean, we'll see what happens with Brock Osweiler, and we saw him a lot here at Arizona State, but. You start talking about quarterbacks that are not drafted in the first round, and it becomes a major crapshoot on whether a guy could either develop into something that is worthy of being called the future quarterback of a team. And that's part of this team's problem right now. They're winning enough games; they're not going to be drafting high enough to get anybody that you think might be that guy.
Yeah, let's move away from people that aren't playing and to people that are playing. It's my suggestion, my belief. Daren, and you are following them day to day, and you know a lot more than I do. I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to beat the Seattle Seahawks for first place in the division. Do you agree or disagree?
I think if Carson Palmer is healthy, and they're healthy generally, but they absolutely have to have Palmer, I think they've got a really good chance. I think the confidence level around this team is, I would say it's higher now than it's ever been, and that includes that little 2-year run when Kurt Warner was at his peak and this team made the Super Bowl. I just think they're a deeper roster. I think they just have a confidence that just kind of trickles down from Bruce Arians to everybody else. And I do absolutely believe they think they can do it. The last time they played the Seahawks with Carson Palmer, they won in Seattle, and I think they remember that. Now, you've got to keep him healthy, and that is a concern after last year. But he took every snap in 2013 for this team. I think a lot of people forget that after what he went through last year, and I think they feel like he can be the guy, and they're definitely set up to challenge the Seahawks, I believe.
He's Daren Ever. He writes for ArizonaCardinals.com, and all of our guests are brought to you by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's. Hey, Daren, I'm watching the game last night, and I see Chris Johnson, the old Tennessee Titan, is listed as the second-string running back for the Cardinals, and he played most of the game most of the first half last night. And I'm waiting to see that flash. I'm waiting to see the 2,000-yard Chris Johnson that played in Tennessee, and I'm waiting, and he had an okay game. But do you see that flash at all from him in practice or in other preseason games? I didn't see it last night.
We should add to that, Daren, that Les also thinks that he's going to see that flash from Earl Campbell again.
I was going to say that the 2,000-yard Chris Johnson was 2009. We're talking a few years ago.
Yeah, just a few.
I think, first of all, that was Chris Johnson's first real football since he even signed here. I mean, he had the shooting incident this summer and hadn't signed anywhere, and then he got to training camp and he hurt his hamstring one of his first practices with the Cardinals. He's barely practiced. And they just needed to see him in a game. I don't know if I saw a 2,000-yard flash yesterday, but I do think they felt like they saw enough of him that he showed that he can give them something. And they don't need a lot from him. They've got Andre Ellington. They drafted David Johnson. They're looking to basically be one of those scenarios where they have 3 different running backs that they can put in there, and if some guy gets hot, they'll ride him. And if Chris Johnson doesn't get hot, then those other 2 guys will play more. And I think that's really all they're looking for from him right now.
maybe 500 yards less. Maybe you'll be excited by that.
That might be more than most people expect from Chris Johnson these days.
I think one of the problems, even though I said I picked Seattle to lose to Arizona for the division, Arizona doesn't sneak up on anybody anymore, do they, Darren? I mean,
no. I think they've won enough that they're not sneaking up on anybody anymore. And these days, Bruce Arians announces his intentions with authority anymore. I mean, they're not going to sneak up on anybody because their head coach is out there and in front of everybody and making everybody know about them. So no, there's no question they're not going to sneak up on anybody. But that's not bad. They spent enough years trying to sneak up on people, and that didn't necessarily work out either.
Yeah, Darren, I'm glad you mentioned Bruce Arians. I think he is one of the most underrated coaches.
He's not underrated anymore.
I think he is. Yeah. And you know why I think he's underrated? Because I don't think a lot of people talk about the Arizona Cardinals. Do you think he's underrated, Darren?
I think at this point, I think it's tough to call him that. I mean, he's won Coach of the Year 2 of the last 3 years, so people are noticing him. I think the Cardinals can get underrated, but I mean, that's what happens when you have many years of struggles and you have a little flash of success, and people are going to be cautious and looking at you as a franchise that's possibly turned the corner. But I do think that they're in a much better place. I've been covering this team for 16, 17 years now, and the organization is in a completely different place than it was when I first started following this team and being around them on a daily basis. So I think they're going in the right direction, and I do think Arians has a lot to do with that right now. And but like I said, it's hard for Bruce to be ignored at any stretch, whether it's his coaching or just how he says some quality things to the media. I got to be honest, as somebody who's covered the team for a long time, I'm in heaven right now going through the Bruce Arians era, and I'm going to cherish every moment of it because I know it's not going to last forever.
Darren, what's your Twitter handle if people want to follow what you're doing? We know you're with ArizonaCardinals.com. They can find you there.
I can be found at CardsChatter, which is, don't ask me where I came up with that one, but yeah, at CardsChatter.
Sure, that sounds as good as any.
And how'd you come up with that one, Darren?
You know what?
No, you don't have to answer that.
I have a final question. We have about a minute, Darren. I've got a two-parter for you. We talked yesterday about Larry Fitzgerald. We put him in the top 6 of all-time Cardinals, Arizona football Cardinals. There was questions about whether he would actually come back and at what price. Is he at the end? I love Larry as a person. How much is he going to contribute this year? And B, John Elway and I still have a debate because I wanted them to draft your cornerback, and he took a linebacker instead. How would you compare the results of what the Arizona Cardinals got in their #1 draft pick and what the Broncos got in Von Miller? How's that for a tough one?
Well, I'll try and hit those quickly. I think with Fitz, I think he's got a lot left. I think the way Bruce Arians uses him, he's not going to be catching 95 balls for 1,400 yards. But I do think he had a really good camp, and I think he likes being here, and I think they paid him $22 million guaranteed the next 2 seasons to stick around. So that was a big reason why they wanted him back. I think he means a lot more to this franchise than just the catches he makes. And as for the latter, I think they like Patrick. Obviously, they've invested a lot in their future. But I can also tell you that if Von Miller had been on the board when the Cardinals picked that year, I think they would have gone pass rusher over cornerback because they're still looking for a pass rusher.
Woody would have gotten his wish then. He would have gotten Patrick Peterson. You just depressed him, Darren. You just made Woody depressed.
I didn't mean to do that.
That's
going into the holiday weekend and everything.
Darren, really appreciate your time, and we'll be reading you on ArizonaCardinals.com, all right?
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Daren Ever. And all of our guests brought to you by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza.